So IDAC boss, Advocate Andrea Johnson, hit back so hard at the Mkhwanazi allegations at the Ad Hoc Committee. In this video, I'm going to show you everything that's happened there, and if you stay with me all the way till my biblical reaction, you're going to get a nice bird's eye view about IDAC and about the Mkhwanazi bombshell and where it is, and something very important because it's so key for South Africa to go to its destination. And say it with me, South Africa will prosper. So you ready? Good. Press like. Let's go. So let's start by reminding you of the 3 allegations that Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi made at the Ad Hoc Committee against IDAC.
Entity within the NPA that is responsible for investigating corruption in the country, which was recently established. I made an example yesterday and I invited the members to do the profile of an arresting officer of the members of crime intelligence. You're going to know that he's an ex-crime intelligence member. And when you look at what IDAC is supposed to deal with, then you ask yourself whether does this investigating officer, Mr. Padayachi, fits the profile of being appointed at IDAC to first place. Whether does he have qualifications, skills, and everything to do with investigation to deal with such sensitive cases that the legislature was intended to be done by IDAC. You look at the number of cases that are within IPID, or they were within IPID when Mr. Sissoko was still the boss, head of investigation at IPID, and how many of those case dockets were moved from IPID to IDAC, and what was the reason for such movement. You look at just a profile of all the cases IDAC is dealing with, and you take that entire caseload, you compare with the establishment of IDAC, and you see whether a typical example of the arrest of an appointment of an officials within crime intelligence of who's going to earn a salary over a period of 12 months of just over R1 million, does it meet the requirements of what IDAC was established for? For IDAC to travel from Pretoria, coming here and take a statement from the complainant, the Member of Parliament, is that what IDAC, is that what the legislature was intending to do with IDAC? Or has IDAC lost the plot? So those are the typical examples that I'm putting there. The other members within the very same section of IDAC I'm talking about might have found themselves there because they're looking for jobs. But we are here today because some of those members do not like what's happening. They themselves, they are there, they see the wrong. They are doing because they're employed, but at least they get to share this information. Hence, we are here today. We are privileged that there might be members within the very bad section of IDAC, but they are good in their heart because they are able to share this information with us. They are there, they can see what is wrong, and I cannot expose them now and say so and so and so and so. So while the section is a bad section, but not everyone in that section is bad. There are members within the very same section that are good at heart.
So Mkhwanazi raises those 4 things to explain how the IDAC connected to the arrest of Khumalo to then disturb the political killings task team on behalf of Mchunu, Sbiya, and everyone else. So the IDAC boss hits back to say, number 1, nobody told us there was anything else going on. Number 2, she burns Fadil Adams by saying, yeah, he gave us something to act on and it's got some things that are very shady in there, saying dockets are lost. Number 3, she says what Khumalo did by appointing Dineo Mukwili, I think it's a relative of his, who didn't qualify to be in that position that also happens to have many tenders, fits within what she does because IDAC came out of the Zondo Commission. And she fought hard to say, there is no rogue unit in my organization. But she did come across quite well, very competent, but hear her for yourself. You tell me at the bottom if you believe her or not.
When IDAC requested the dockets through the office of Lieutenant General Sentomule, what would have made sense if IDAC was informed that they should please wait, there is a process to deal with this matter, given that there is a complaint that has been escalated to the Office of the National Commissioner. Of course, we would have waited. We were not informed that there was a process to look at the allegations and or the unhappiness of Mr. Adams. Not at all. The dockets were handed over. And it is so. Those dockets, in all likelihood, in the form that they were in at the South African Police Services, were scant. And they were unable to apply, or well, they applied their minds, but could not come up with the requisite criminal charges. I'm not disputing that. But that must be borne out by the fact that for whatever reason, and the attempts they made, or the kinds of attempts they made, Honorable Chair, they did not secure an audience with Mr. Adams. IDAC was able to secure an audience with Mr. Adams. When he referred the matter in terms of Section 27, IDAC was able to sit with him, to take his affidavit, and to fully understand the allegations that he was making. That was an opportunity the police did not get. I accept that if they got that opportunity and or asked for that opportunity and went ahead with it, there's a real likelihood those cases would not have ended up in the IDAC space because the police would have done their work. So I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying we were not aware of that process. And I would honestly, in fairness to the colleagues at SAPS, one would have expected them to bring it to IDAC's attention, that they were vested in dealing with this complaint.
What is General Khumalo charged with?
In the charge sheet which is attached, General Khumalo is charged with corruption for the gratification of the employment position, and then there are fraud charges as well that are preferred against the General.
So in Mr. Adams' complaint to IDAC, he said, I've opened the case twice and the dockets disappeared. Well,
the documents are actually reported to have disappeared. So my question is, would you still maintain that the dockets had disappeared, as you have actually said in your evidence?
What is in my affidavit is what is reported to us by Mr. Adams, that he had opened cases in the Western Cape, those dockets disappeared. I use the words that the person used, that he opened dockets in Gauteng and they disappeared. What I did say in an earlier response just now was, IDAC was not aware of the process that was followed as per MK15. So how these got there, we are not aware. But what we did become aware of is when he came to Gauteng, we asked the Divisional Commissioner detectives that we would like to know if these dockets are there and can we have access to those dockets. Given that they were then, as I now know, were busy with these, of course they had those dockets. But we didn't know where those dockets were, and the witness, Mr. Adams, the complainant, indicated that the dockets were missing. When those dockets were handed to us, we were handed dockets with Valeria CARES numbers and one Langlagte CARES number, and those were the dockets that we then had. But those were the dockets that they had and gave to us. We didn't know that they had them till we wrote and asked for them, but that is what he said, Honourable Member, that the dockets were missing.
Should we actually believe that the dockets were missing or had disappeared? Should we actually be still saying that the dockets had disappeared?
Honourable Member, I give it from the context of what was referred to us and what the complainant indicated. When we had the dockets, we can no longer say the dockets are not there. Those are the dockets that we were given by the head of detectives. So in his initial report, he said the dockets are missing. So when we were given the later information, we were able to ask for. So no, we can't say the dockets are still missing. We now have the dockets because the head of detectives provided us with those dockets.
It's a bit bizarre that you don't have the exact dates even in your affidavit, or in your statement rather, but we have here the 29th of October was when Honourable Adams opened the case in Western Cape. Then it's the 31st of October when he traveled to Gauteng. Then on the 1st, he writes to the minister, and then you get a letter on the 11th of November. So it's all in a space of 14 days. Does that make sense to you?
So,
14 days that it landed up with you to intervene.
Honourable Chair and Member, I understand what you're saying. On the face of it, it looks as though things were rushed. We cannot determine the sequence that he chose to follow. But when he did come to IDAC to refer the matter, we dealt with the matter at the time. I accept that it doesn't look kosher, but that is what he did. I cannot comment on why he followed the timeline that he did. And that is why I go back to, if the police had indicated they were running a process as per MK15, we would have stood back and allowed that process to run. It was not in our interest to be running with the matter while they ran with the matter.
So the question wasn't talking so much about the process of Adams, of Honourable Adams. It's about that when you finally got hold of it, that this happened so quickly. So that just didn't raise any awareness that within 14 days you have something, and the fact that he said dockets are missing and they actually weren't missing.
I take the point, Honourable Mates. I can't differ from your answer, except we received a complaint, we acted on the complaint in the time that we acted on the complaint.
Do you know Kat Matlala? Do you know Brown Mkhotsi? Have you got their names or numbers on your mobile telephone?
No, I don't know any of them, and got to know of them from what is in the media reports. And of course now through the Madlanga Commission one gets to know about the allegations of their criminality. Kat Matlala, we got to know based on the fact that, well, we got to know of him, to be correct, based on the referral on the 16th of February 2025 from the Risk Audit Committee of the South African Police, but only insofar as relates to the 360 million rand tender, nothing else. So I cannot comment on their criminality.
Were you aware that Mr. Molefi's place was raided on the 6th of December 2024?
No. After the fact, yes, as it now plays itself out in the media through the Commission.
So she hit back hard and tried to explain how what Khumalo did fits under the greater auspices of state capture. And Julius wasn't quite satisfied with that. Like, how do you not catch the big fish of state capture, but you're going to catch Khumalo?
There are so high-profile people who are mentioned in Busasa. One of them is the national chairperson of the ANC, who's a minister, Gwede Mantashe. The other one is Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who ate chickens every December. But Agrizzi said he was sending chicken every month that's supposed to go to prisoners. Is going to Nhlanhla and will such people not be people of interest? Because our inability to defeat corruption is that the high profile individuals with money don't get to be prosecuted. And these things came out public, we were all there and all of that.
So, Honourable Malema, I take the point. However, those investigations continue. What did hamper us is the evidence we sought. We had to get, the only other person who could give us that evidence was Angelo Agrizzi, who was also an accused. Angelo Agrizzi has in the past month now deposed to Section 204 affidavits on various individual matters that we did not have previously. We must now move with those matters. And they are among the matters
I'll tell you where I come from, Advocate. Khumalo gets arrested for labor-related matter. And then there are these people who have been eating chickens and eating food of prisoners and blessed with Austin Martins and all of that. A person is accused of irregular appointment, and that becomes a big issue when we've got this other. So when this is presented before us, it looks like there are others who are treated differently and others are treated differently. But I'm happy that you are saying we are coming close to making more arrests with the 204 we got from Agrizzi. So my question will be, I'm moving from that one. When does it become an irregular appointment And when does it become crime?
So, Honourable Member, we looked at the institution, the position of the accused, and the influence they had in order to circumvent and manipulate the processes. It was different because this is an environment that is charged with upholding, which is part of law enforcement. And there was an active gratification to a person who should never have gotten the job, and they manipulated the processes as we've set out on pages 7 to 9 of the charge sheet. If those matters are referred, and these are positions that compromise a government and how a government runs, then we are fully within our mandate to look at it. None of those matters have come to the fore, but there's no distinction. One shouldn't be allowed in those processes as they are, because an appointment of the incorrect person, even in the municipality, robs South Africans of service delivery. That in itself is a huge impact that we can't afford. So those matters should be escalated.
So she kind of put up a fight to justify why she went after Khumalo. And on the face of it, as much as Khumalo is quite popular now because he's bringing out evidence from the PKTT and exposing drug cartels, it sounds like he might have done something wrong. Now, on the other hand, too, remembering that IDAC is only a year old. This is somewhere in autumn last year when the president actually signed IDAC into law.
I now have the opportunity to sign the National Prosecuting Authority Amendment Act, given under my hand at the Union Buildings on this, the 24th of May, the year 2024. They now say, as President, I should sign, which I hereby do, willingly and happily.
So that's when the law that gave us IDAC was signed, and IDAC only began at the end of August last year. Since then, IDAC got to do this.
The National Prosecuting Authority has been handed a lifeline by the Supreme Court of Appeal to correct its wrongs in its first ever state capture case, and that is the multi-million rand Nulane fraud matter. And remember, this after the SCA in a judgment on Thursday, which is today, granted the NPA leave to appeal its 2023 judgment of the acting judge Gusha, which discharged the Gupta-linked accused in terms of Section 174 of the Criminal Procedure Act. The SCA finding, among other things, that the High Court committed a new number of errors and subsequently ordered that the respondents may be retried for the same offences, in respect of which they were then acquitted by the Free State High Court on the 21st of April 2023, as if they had not previously been arraigned, tried and acquitted, provided that a different judge shall preside over the trial.
So the NPA had lost a case around some of the Gupta accused in the Nulane investment case, and IDAC got that loss overturned, so they're able to bring it to court again under a new judge. And you also remember how this guy told you how IDAC had gone back to state capture on the 1st of July. So then, latest news, Brian Molefe, Siyabonga Gama, and Anoj Singh were granted 50,000 rands bail over fraud, corruption, and money laundering charges. Molefe and Gama, both former Transnet CEOs, were arrested alongside former Transnet CFO Anoj Singh and the parastatal's former engineering chief executive Thamsanqa Jiyane on Monday after they surrendered themselves to police in Brackendowns, south of Joburg. So that was another IDAC win. And also remember how she said she got a Section 204 affidavit from Agrizzi? Well, that's when you are about to get into serious trouble and they say if you sing like a canary on an affidavit, then we'll cut your sentence down. It's almost the same as the chairperson of VBS. Just before he went to jail, he sang like a canary about how Julius Malema and Floyd Shibambu managed to get some money paid from VBS. Similar thing. So clearly, IDAC liked the singing of Agrizzi, because just today, at the recording of this video,
the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, also IDAC in short, which says that they are engaging with Dr. Malusi Gigaba and will not be appearing in court today, adding there will be no further comment on the matter. This morning, Gigaba appeared at the IDAC offices, and this was in response to what he said was a summons from the National Prosecuting Authority to do so. The NPA had summoned Gigaba to appear this morning, and he duly complied, appearing at the IDAC offices where the charges were officially introduced. The charges allegedly relate to the procurement of locomotives and other procurement activities at Transnet during his time as Minister of Public Enterprises. This morning, before his appearance, he released a statement in his personal capacity stating that he had a non-executive role in the Transnet procurement process, and that as a law-abiding citizen, he would cooperate fully. Gigaba is currently a member of Parliament, serving as co-chair of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence.
The Investigating Directorate Against Corruption is having engagements with Mr. Malusi Gigaba, and he has not been placed under any arrest. Therefore, there will not be any court appearance today.
There we go. On the day when Julius Malema was complaining about big fish from state capture inquiry not being held, well, she said we're moving and something will happen soon. So they called in Malusi Gigaba, whom we remember featured strongly in the Zondo Commission. So here's Mkhwanazi's bombshell. He spoke about the unlawful disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team. Senzo Mchunu, his testimony really made us feel like that was absolutely true. Removal of 121 dockets, Shadrach Sibiya didn't cancel that in any way. So that seems to be absolutely true. A moratorium on filling of crime intelligence vacancies, well, I think he agreed to that. He said that was a great New Year's resolution idea. MPs helping to stop PKTT. So we still need to hear from Collar Barnard and Adams and the way he went about referring the case to IDAC. He's either going to burn himself very seriously on his own, or he might poke a hole in Advocate Johnson's story. Mkhwanazi also spoke about top cops having relationships with corrupt cops. We've seen enough at the Nhlanhla Commission, the texts, the Cat Matlalas, Brown Mkhotsi still coming, but anyone who still thinks this is a thumbsuck needs to have their head tested. We've seen enough. Unless Cat Matlala or Brown Mkhotsi come and say something extremely, unusually, unexpected, and amazingly changing anything, I think we're pretty clear on that one too. The 360 million healthcare contract, well, we all know about that. Now, Johnson was addressing the issue of interference by IDAC and magistrates because of the Khumalo matter and the bail terms that Khumalo got, which kept him away from the office. She tried to explain that no, this is all normal, and us going after Khumalo is within our ambit, and Adams didn't tell me, and the cops didn't tell us. She's kind of hit back decently. It doesn't help that she's full of fire and gives you the feeling of listening to a competent person. So right now, as it stands, this is the only thing that's really shaky in the Mkhwanazi bombshell, that okay, maybe IDAC, maybe they weren't part of this, maybe IDAC didn't know, but we're still watching. We need to hear from Collar Barnard and Adams to make a stronger determination as far as IDAC is concerned. Especially, we've got to hear from Adams.
Indeed. So we now know there's confirmation that the police minister who has been placed on a leave of absence, that is Senzo Mchunu, has officially handed over his electronic devices, and he's done so voluntarily. We know that it's at least 5 electronic devices that were taken. That is the state-issued laptop that he has, as well as a personal tablet, or we could call it an iPad, if you could put it that way. And there's 2 unused old cell phones that they also took that were found in his possession, as well as his 1 active phone that he currently uses, that he handed over to the authorities in that ongoing probe. That rounds up the picture of the number of people or people of interest that have been, I guess, raided and their devices have been taken. That includes the October raid of Lt-Gen Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, where we know devices were taken, the raid of the home of the Chief of Staff, Cedric Ngambire, and we know he wasn't at the home, but some devices were taken from that particular home. Brad Mkhwanazi as well, there was a raid at his business premises, but we know that he wasn't there at the time, but we have gotten confirmation that he has since handed over his electronic devices. So that rounds up a number of the persons of interest in these allegations and the ongoing probes that is taking place surrounding the overall allegations of criminality, political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system. So that's just part of the course.
So right now, the first one to sing like a canary in a Section 204 gets to go free if they give up a bigger fish. So my biblical reaction, the first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. So it's a pleasure. This is how we gave you guys the Audi Alterum Partem rule, which means you must hear the other side of the story before you judge. And so at this point, it seems pretty clear that Mkhwanazi's allegations are pretty solid. They're worth following up. Due process says there is no way to treat Mkhwanazi as anything but a whistleblower. Now, there may be other things he got wrong. He may have other issues of any kind, but anyone who treats Mkhwanazi like anything but a whistleblower at this point has to be pushing an unhealthy agenda and absolutely bad for our country, which is extremely hungry for whistleblowers. Because after hearing both sides, Mchunu, SBIA, and now IDAC, and seeing all the evidence, it's pretty clear Mkhwanazi is a whistleblower. And that's my feeling at the moment. Let me hear from you if you agree. I just want to send kisses and hugs to all our prosperity pledgers. We really appreciate your gesture of support that gets to say, keep going, keep going, keep going. Not only with this channel, but everything else that we have lined up so that we do our part, since South Africa will prosper. So if you want to also be giving a gesture of support, please go down and check the Prosperity Pledge and consider just being another hand that hits us on the back and says, keep going, South Africa will prosper. Right? No man can serve 2 masters. Either you love the one or hate the other, or you'll despise the one and honor the other. You cannot serve God and Karl Marx. So let's make history together. Cheers.